My name is Nancy Ruth Owens, and I'm from Clewiston, Florida. Around 1979, 1980, I became involved in what was known as the Medellin cartel, located in Henry County, specifically Montura Ranch Estates. This is specifically to the people who live in Clewiston. I know that it's hard to believe for some of you that the individual who lived in California, known as the Zodiac Killer, could actually be living in Clewiston. When I was approximately, say, maybe 12, 13, 14, my father, Tom Beecham Owens, kin to Jimmy Owens, Johnny, and Kay Owens, formerly of Clewiston, he received a phone call from Charles. Charles had been stationed with my father. My father was stationed first in Tucson, Arizona, which is where I was born, and then later he was stationed in California, which is where Tommy Owens Jr., Ethan's father, was born. Around 12, 13, he contacted my father and indicated that there was some sort of trouble where he was at. And my father talked to him and told him that to give him a few days, that because of his, and I don't know what my father might have known about Charles. He said give him a few days, that he would talk to Earl Dias Jr. And since Charles was in the military, it probably wouldn't be a problem for him to be hired on with the sheriff's department. So, it was set up. Eventually, Charles Peacock came to the house. I do remember being with him in the dining room and just having a very uneasy feeling, and that's because having been exposed to, literally, and just having been exposed to Earl Dias Jr., who is a child molester. I'm not saying Charles Peacock is. You tend to be alert to certain individuals, and Charles just, I just didn't feel very comfortable around him. I did not come in contact with him until years later, when I began, I was in and around the Medellin cartel in the late 79, 80s. It was during some certain events that I was involved first with one murder of, I believe it was a member of the Rudd family. Charles covered that up. Earl Dias Jr. covered that up as well. If you guys ever get together and start comparing notes, you'll notice that there's a similarity between who was usually present after your family members either died or disappeared. The Rudd family would be one, the Walkers would be another, Sherry Farner's family would be another one. I worked for the Henry County Sheriff's Department. You just keep putting two and two together, and hopefully by now you're starting to get a picture of what was going on. Charles, after the situation with the Rudd, I believe it was Rudd, it was on Trinidad. I just barely left the building, without being murdered by Charles. He just simply didn't want to let me leave. He was, of course, concerned that he would be exposed. At this time, I told him, I says, look, you don't have anything to worry about. I'm the one who does all of the dirty work for Dias Jr. And keep in mind, I didn't have a choice. Dias Jr., Dias Sr. had set this Medellin cartel thing up long before I came into the picture. To keep my family alive, I did what I had to do. So Charles didn't want to let me leave, and he was not satisfied with one murder. So there was a second one on Trinidad. This one was blamed on another individual who did go to prison for it. It occurred. The murder occurred. Charles is into certain things in that respect, and after I left the building. Now, what Charles Peacock did after I was gone, I don't know. I was in the front, I came out the front door, started smoking a cigarette, and just simply waited for him to come out. I had gone to the Trocadero bar a week or two later, sometime later, I'm not really sure, and I was called to, outside to the pay phone, and it was Charles on the phone, and he said, "I've got a prostitute, and she's hidden. If you can find her, she lives." So I don't know if no, if you can get here in time, you can save her. And he told me where he was. It was right down the road in the cane fields to the west, going towards Fort Myers. He was in the cane fields. I got there within 5 minutes. The girl was wearing a blue sequined shirt, one of those tank tops that wrap around. They don't have any shoulder straps, and they're just tubes, and they're sequins. And when I got there, and keep in mind he was a sheriff's deputy, a Henry County sheriff's deputy. When I got there, I took one look at her and I told her, "Come on, get in the car, we're gonna go." And she was confused. She didn't understand what was going on, and I told her, "Look, just don't ask any questions, get in the car." And I took her out of there. A week later, I was in the Trocadero bar again, and the same thing happened. I got a phone call from Charles, and he basically wanted to play the game again. And I told him, I knew when I got that second phone call, if I continued with him, this was going to be something that just simply was never going to end. And I felt like it was a bluff. And so I called his bluff. It turned out, fortunately, that it was a bluff, because it would not have been a good situation. I would not have been able to live with the situation. But, I had no choice. So in times you have certain places and certain things that just come together. You have the cocaine. You have a very corrupt Sermodice Senior, Sermodice Junior, who think they're kings. You have, at some point, an introduction of Charles Peacock. At some point, you have the introduction of Pablo Escobar. You have Rivi Ayala. You just have a convergence of individuals who are supported by Cuba and other countries who simply don't want to see Americans succeed. They want to come in, they want to invade, they want to take over. And again, there's no denying that in the past 30 years, this is exactly what's happened in South Florida and in California and a few other states. You just simply had, again, in Henry County, a convergence of certain elements that came together. You had corrupt officials such as D'Alessandro, who profited A lot of people who were imprisoned, Robert Evans is probably one of them. I'm not going to swear to it. If he was put in prison for a murder committed in 1980, it passed in August, September of 1980. I can guarantee you that he may not have even been there. Okay, it wasn't. There was a girl who drowned. There may not have been a murder committed by Robert Evans. He may have been simply eliminated by Sermon Dice Jr. as a potential witness. A lot of people who were imprisoned in Henry County were set up, framed, not guilty of the crimes they're committed, accused of. And at the same time, the people who Sermon Dice Jr. and Pablo Escobar had doing these things were walking free. So I know that it's a little hard to say that this is a possibility, but Charles did come from California. Charles was stationed with my father. Charles did hire on with the Henry County Sheriff's Department. Charles did become an enforcer of sorts through the Sheriff's Department for the Medellin cartel. So before we can move on any further, you need to open up your mind to this. I know, again, he's legendary. The Zodiac Killer is legendary in California, and he just disappeared, and it's hard to believe that Clewiston is where he could have settled. But you need to open up your mind to it. There's Henry County, there's so much that went on. So many of your family members disappeared.